Can you imagine what it's like to age out of foster care and not have a family? No roots, no grounding. It's really hard. It's really, really hard. After so many years, decades of being in the business of child protection, I know my kids. I know they're not invisible to me. They're invisible to everybody else until we talk. And then they see. I think the core issue is that a community is made up of people that are able to take care of themselves or it's not. My kids are not able to take care of themselves. About 80% of kids aging out of foster care lead dysfunctional lives. And then they go to juvenile justice, then they go to criminal justice, and 80% recidivism in the prisons right now means it's very expensive. It costs you taxes, it costs you quality of life, it costs you insurance because they break things, they steal things, they do things. And mostly, if one of your children were to run into one of my kids and you get stabbed or raped or robbed, those things become very important to you very fast. And imagine what it's like to be raped at 5, 6, or 7. And not just once, but those things happen in that home and it goes on, whether they're boys or girls. I've had both. And they lose part of their mind. I mean, it's a reptilian response. And we get into the mental health issues and how that works. But once we know what we're dealing with, we can help. The medical models do work. Everybody has a different approach to what they can do, what they will do. I tell people that decisions are reversible. So try things. You know, some people like to work with children hands-on. My kids are hard. They are. But you could read to them in elementary school. You could get them then. That helps. Or you could work with kids as a big brother, big sister. You could do guardian ad litem work. There's a dozen things you could do. We have done such a poor job for so long in actually interrupting generational child abuse. If you think about this from my perspective, what we have here are preteen moms with no parenting skills and a drunken boyfriend and violence and the things that happen. And the trauma that happens to these kids is carried on from generation to generation to generation. Because what happens in the home is normal, and it's going to be your life in the next life as you get to be an adult and have your own family. These kids don't know that what happened to them was wrong, and they're going to do it to their children because it's all they know. It's impacting the social worker. It's impacting law enforcement. It's impacting foster parents that take care of them. And again, back to downtown or wherever you go, you're not safe. Our crime statistics are real and we deserve them because this is what we've done to millions and millions of American children for decades. And they are violent, often violent. And again, back to dysfunctional lifestyles, drug abuse, just all kinds of things that are costly, both personally and, to a community. It hurts me to see that our statistics nationally are so sour when it comes to who's in prison, how many, building more prisons. None of that's going to change until we all get involved and make some effort to make things better for these kids. It's a lot harder to make a difference to a 20 or a 30-year-old person that's been part of the system for a long, long time. We can't even take care of our children, no prenatal care. When you get into the heart and soul of what's wrong here, it's that we don't care enough about other people's children to take care of them from the time this young preteen mom gets pregnant. And if she had resources, if we cared enough to take care of her and her new baby, maybe things would be different. Because it's real easy to change a baby, to make happy 2-year-olds, that sort of thing, a lot easier than trying to correct a 20, 25-year-old male or female that's been part of a dysfunctional family, traumatized, has all kinds of mental health issues, taking Prozac. The things that my kids do, I'm always amazed when I get a new case and I find out that this child at 5, 6, 7 has been prescribed Prozac, Ritalin, Zoloft, drugs and drugs to change a behavior that's been put upon them by trauma. They've been traumatized, they've been damaged. And we know how to work with it now with the adverse childhood model instead of the punishment model, but we don't. We don't have the resources. We talk big about how we treat children in this country, but as a practical matter, we're pulling them out of the river. We haven't gone to the source. And that's really what I'm talking about here today, is that you go to the source, you make young mothers safe, their children safe, prenatal care, early childhood programs, subsidized daycare, crisis nurseries, simple steps. You can get involved in any of that if you're a volunteer. Believe me, the resources are thin in these areas. Some communities have little or none of it. Foster care, same thing. The systems themselves, the institutions are overwhelmed. And so the people doing the work for pay really don't get success. They're just stemming the tide. They're pulling the kids out of the river. And if you're in law enforcement, you're tasing 12-year-olds. Think about some of the things that happen to these kids. They've had miserable lives in the family home. They've been tortured, traumatized, raped, the things that happen to them in those homes. You don't get into child protection unless terrible things have happened to you. The World Health Organization's definition of torture is extended exposure to violence and deprivation. And every kid that I've worked with, 50 kids that I've helped remove from really toxic homes, every one of those children was raped or beaten or starved for many, many years. Usually the oldest child has been tortured, beat, traumatized for 4 years. That's my experience. And what happens then is that they get into school and they have a problem in school. They're not really there to learn. They're there because the situation demands it. They have to be there. They're very worried about, they're high anxious people. They have mental health issues. They need our help. And if we can get to them, I like to be able to think before the end of grade school, where we really pour resources into them. That's the most effective thing beyond prenatal care, beyond baby care. You know, if we could take care of that family at that stage, that'd solve everything, breaking the generational child abuse thing that we're talking about. But if we can get to them in grade school, get them through grade school, and they go into junior high as a healthy student, they will learn. Children gravitate towards what's normal. They want to be normal. They know what normal is, and they know that they're not, in my world of child protection.